What's up, YouTube? So I'm back with another video today. If this is your first time tuning into my video, welcome to my channel. And if you're back, thank you for being here with me thus far. Thank you for being loyal to me thus far, because I have way more in store for y'all. As you can see by the title, I am about to talk to y'all about my toss-up between the Army and the Air Force and how I end up eventually sticking with the Army, even though I started the Air Force process. So this is a series video, and I do start off by telling y'all my experience, why I even chose to join the military in general. And I just talk about how college led me to joining the military because I wasn't yet ready for the workforce. And I talk about that in my previous video, so I'm gonna link that. And if you have not watched that, you probably need to go watch that in order to watch this video. I am gonna start talking about why I chose enlisted over officer and how I chose the MOS I did as a 68 X-ray, and what was my recruitment process like, what was Meps like, what was shipping out like. All those type of things I'm going to be talking about in this series. But today I want you to stay tuned because the Army was able to get your girl. Stay tuned for that information, and yeah, I'm gonna put y'all up on game. Oh yeah, on that beat me if you wanna reach me. Alright y'all, so in my video I tell y'all about my entire college experience that led me to joining the military, and in that video I mentioned that my mom first linked me with a Army recruiter in 2018 at the start of my senior year of college. But I did brush him off because I knew that I wanted to focus on graduating, that I was not yet at the stage where I needed to focus on joining the military. Fast forward to me graduating in May of 2019, I did get nervous about entering the workforce, and I did reach back out to that recruiter like I promised I would, and I did tell him I was ready to start the process. And of course y'all, Army recruiters don't waste no time, and we started that process immediately. So what you'll learn is when you meet with the recruiter, the first thing they're gonna do is they're going to see what you're even about. What is your knowledge level like? They gonna test you first of all. So before they even start pulling out all those sales tricks and everything out they had, they gotta see who is even in front of them. So the first thing they'll do is they'll take you to go take a practice test in their office, and that is just kind of a mini version of what to expect on the ASVAB. And so that's what I did. I ended up taking a practice PICAT, I believe. I think it was a practice PICAT. And that recruiter at the time, he told me that if I score well on that, I am able to go lock in that score at Meps, that I wouldn't even have to take the real ASVAB. And I'm like, for real? Yes, because you know, I hadn't studied for the ASVAB at that point in time. I had been in college like all of those type of general science and geometry, all that stuff I haven't even learned since freshman year of college and high school, so I knew I was gonna have to study for that. But he was telling me, hey, if you do well on this practice test, you don't even have to worry about studying for the whole ASVAB. I think I did do well on that practice test, and he told me all I had to do was go and lock in that score at Meps. So he scheduled for me to go to Meps, and I came to the recruiting station, and come to find out, he wasn't the one that was going to be taking me to Meps. That's where the first fishy part of the process started for me, y'all. Well, he was like, oh, I'm not gonna be there. I think he was on leave or something, so a whole nother recruiter had to take me, but it's supposed to be your recruiter that goes up to the Meps station with you. But I end up going with this other recruiter that drove me to the Meps station with the intention of confirming my scores for the PICAT. They end up telling me that the PICAT machine was down. I'm like, the PICAT machine was down? I'm like, well, this is why I came, to confirm my practice test, so how's it down? They was like, well, it's down, because you know how shitty those people are at Meps. They were like, nope, it's down, so only choice you have is to take the ASVAB. At that time, I'm just like, oh, like, I'm already here, you know, might as well see how I'm gonna do. Worst mistake, y'all. Your girl did not do good on that first ASVAB I took for the very first time. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I think I got maybe, I'm not gonna even tell y'all, because it's not important. I did better the second time I took it, but basically, y'all, I was pissed off. I went and told my recruiter, I'm just like, hey, I didn't do well on my ASVAB, and and I wasn't even supposed to take the ASVAB. And he was like, oh, you know, don't worry, you know, you can still get jobs. With the score you have, you're good. Of course, y'all, this is where they tell you that you have to study hard for the ASVAB, because the jobs I was offered was like 15 jobs, and they were terrible jobs. And I'm not saying the jobs that were offered to me are not jobs that people genuinely want, but for me personally, with the aspirations that I have, they were nothing that I would want to do. I can tell that those are jobs that they had to push for their quota, that those are jobs that maybe only high schoolers would choose to take, because people think that they're desperate to get a job, and those are the ones that are mostly filling those jobs. And basically they were just not jobs for me. And I was like, oh no. It was actually an entire process, y'all, that I'm gonna tell you about. I end up complaining, and I don't know if he put me in touch with the NCOIC of the recruiting station, or if I said I wanted to talk to him, but I ended up talking to the boss at the recruiting station, and I was like, hey, I didn't do well on my ASVAB, and I wasn't even supposed to take the ASVAB. They were trying to lead me on as if I had no choice of taking the ASVAB again, period. They were saying it like, oh, this is your score, this is what it is. I'm like, what? That don't even make sense. But at the beginning, y'all, I barely had enough knowledge on the recruitment process. So I'm like, wait, that sounds fishy. And I mentioned in the last video that my cousin, she retired as a major from the Army. So of course I called her and I was like, cousin, you know, they up here telling me that I can't take the ASVAB no more, that the score I have is the score I have to keep. And she was like, oh, no. So I didn't expect her to do this, y'all, but she was like, let me talk to the boss. And you know, in the military, it's where you have to respect rank. And in that moment, it doesn't matter if she's in his chain of command. She knew what to say in order to get him to talk. And so he did not like that, y'all. He was very upset with me, and I literally thought he was gonna blackmail me when it came to the Army. Shoot, probably the stuff I'm going through now, maybe he responsible for it. Anywho, yeah, so he was like, well, you can take the ASVAB again, you just can't take it until 30 days. So I was like, okay, that's all I needed from you. And I'm like, I knew something was up, like y'all telling me that this is my score and this is my score only. Yeah, so basically I had to start studying for the ASVAB officially. Like I said, around this time, college was over. I had graduated, it was the summertime, and come July, my lease was gonna be up, and my mom said she was not paying for me to stay in a college apartment. Around that time, I ended up getting offered a good job, and I was able to stay in Murfreesboro, where I was going to school at, without having to worry about moving back home with my mom, going through the issues that come with moving back home to your parents' house. And I was just like, okay, you know what, recruiter, I'm gonna do some mess with you. I just started working a full-time job, and on top of that, I don't got time to study. So I was like, you know what? You rubbed me the wrong way anyway with this recruitment process, and I'm just gonna focus on working. So I only knew of him because my mama, I guess, I don't know how she knew him, but she reached out to him since he was out there with me. But if I were to move home, he wasn't gonna be my recruiter no more, because you leave for the military from the Meps location that is closest to where you live. So I do want to tell y'all that I did start the officer quest with him, because he did get me in touch with the officer during that summer, and I'm going to talk about that in part 3, because that's a whole nother topic. But yes, I did start requesting the information that I needed to go officer, because I know y'all like, girl, you got a degree, why you ain't even been talking about the officer route? And yes, I did start the officer route, but as you can see, I'm not an officer. But to continue, like I said, I started living with my cousin. That wasn't working, and I was like, forget it, I'm gonna start the Army process again, and I'm gonna officially study this time. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm not gonna worry about working. I'm just gonna focus on studying, and I'm gonna move back home. I did move back home the week before Thanksgiving, and I was back home. I was like, you know what? I'm finally back in my hometown after 4 years. Until the new year, I'm gonna be chilling. So I did not start studying officially. I said that I was gonna start studying when the new year came. You know, New Year's resolutions. I was like, I'm gonna start studying it. Come New Year, my mom put me in touch with an Army recruiter. And this is the Army recruiter that I had coming in. But yes, me and her talked, and she was like, yeah, you know, I got you. Let me know what you're trying to do, and I'm here. I'm gonna work with you. And I said, okay, thank you. I was studying because I knew before anything I had to study, and I had to keep figuring out what was best for me. I was watching my YouTube video like y'all are doing right now, finding all the information. I I had the knowledge of finding at that time. And my mom also put me in touch with an Air Force recruiter. So I do want to start talking with y'all about my process with the Air Force recruiter and why, unfortunately, the Air Force was not my final decision. So I met with the Air Force recruiter. I know he was talking to me about, I guess, the benefits of being in the Air Force. He was showing me their dorm rooms, because you know the Air Force has dorm rooms. He was telling me at the time, like, oh, you come Air Force, you gonna only be in the barracks for maybe till you're 25 or when you make rank. And so I'm like, okay, the barracks he was showing me, I was like, dang, they look nice, they look like dorm rooms. He was like, yeah, right? Like, but let me see what you about. He said, I need you to take this PICAT. Starting back with the PICAT process. Y'all remember, it's been about 6 or so months since I met with the Army recruiter, so everything is fresh. I was able to take the PICAT and all this stuff again because the period to do so had expired. So I went and took a PICAT through him, and your girl made a 77. He was like, girl, you need to go and lock this in at Meps station. You need to take the ASVAB and get a 77. He said, you're gonna be able to qualify for any of our jobs. I was like, yes, you know, I've been studying and I knew I was ready. So I was like, okay, yes. And I took the ASVAB through him, but I ended up making a 67 on my ASVAB, so I was disappointed. I am a little confused, y'all, on the specific names of the test, but whatever test I took, and I'm gonna insert it because I have a picture, I made a 77, and then when I took the ASVAB, I had made a 67. I wasn't satisfied with it, but it was enough to get me in with my MOS that I wanted, which, you know, even then with the Air Force recruiter, I had one in behavioral health. He was like, well, the process for us leaving as well is a while, so you won't be leaving until next year. I was like, dang, next year, and all this pressure I got on me to leave right now. This is its own conversation, but I've always been considered heavier for my height because I'm 5'1", and even though I know I'm not fat, I'm thick. You know, I got boobs, I got a butt on me. If you see my pictures without me having to get up and show, you know, I got a little, I don't know if you can see it, but size that I've always been required to be growing up, I've never been that size. Like the BMI and all that stuff that they try to say that you're supposed to be at with a certain height and all that, you know, that stuff really doesn't apply, and it definitely doesn't apply to black women. So he was telling me that I was 5 pounds overweight, and I was like, 5 pounds? He was like, yeah, and I was like, well, can't you tape me? And he was like, well, I can't tape you because I'm a male and we don't have no females at this recruiting station. So yeah, he was like, well, I can't tape you. And I'm just like, okay, so what am I gonna do? He was like, well, just keep trying to lose the 5 pounds. I'm like, 5 pounds? Like at that time I was like, maybe, I think I had to be around 130 something, like 137 at the highest, and I was like maybe 142. And I'm just like, man, I like this size. I mean, you telling me to lose the weight. And now that I look back, I see that I should have just went with another Air Force recruiter. My brother's girlfriend, she is in the Air Force, and I know she might be watching this. Hey sissy, but she definitely was like, no sis, go Air Force. I'm telling you, it's still worth it. Yes, I do this job, but it is okay. I literally love my lifestyle. I think she was stationed in, yeah, she was stationed in Japan, and then now she's stationed in Las Vegas. Las Vegas, y'all. And she was like, yeah, it's literally not that bad. She said, I love the Air Force. You know, it has its ups and downs, but she said, yes, continue the process with the Air Force recruiter. But like I said, the Air Force recruiter was BSing me, and in the midst of me dealing with him, I was still communicating with the Army recruiter that I had. This how my Army recruiter was. She was like, girl, what? He telling you can't come in. Girl, don't worry about that in the Army. We got you. She said, oh, wait, not no issue. That's how she talked. She's like, yo, wait, not no issue. She said, what? And you want to come in as an E3 and have that slow promotion? She said, they barely get promoted in the Air Force. You know, she's a great recruiter. I'm telling you, she be getting them soldiers in left and right. But yeah, I'm like, you right. She was like, all I gotta do is get your information, your documents, transfer it from his recruiting system and get it over here with the Army. And she said, you're gonna be going through the process with me with no issues. She said, don't worry, I got you. Basically, y'all, I end up saying deuces with the Air Force recruiter. All right, y'all, so like I said, I did pull out with the Air Force recruiter, and I did officially start my recruitment process with my Army recruiter in March, which is the recruiter that put me into the Army. And I do want to start talking about the pros and the cons that you will hear, and these are probably some of the things that you're hearing currently, and I just want to go ahead and start debunking some of those myths, because I'm telling you right now, a lot of the information that you're probably hearing is not true and it's not accurate. Some of the pros that I was hearing about the Army before I was going to join was that yes, the Army had way more job opportunities. They had skills and careers that you can choose. The Army has like 300 something jobs that you can do. You know, you're gonna come in, the promotion is way better. They said that it was way easier to go officer in the Army, so even if you came in enlisted, you would eventually be able to go officer way faster than you would have been able to go with the Air Force. You know, a lot of people were telling me, oh, the Army quality of life is improving. Do not believe that the quality of life is that bad. It's not that bad as it used to be. For me, the Army was always my first option. Like I said, I come from an Army background, and I know I was talking to somebody that has subscribed to me, and they were asking me about going Army, and I was like, well, have you at least tried to go other routes? And I was like, no. I'm just like, oh no, that's the first mistake. Please talk to other branches. Don't put your eggs in one basket like I did. I literally pretty much was biased, and I kept the Army always at the forefront, even when talking with the Air Force recruiter, because I come from an Army background and I just felt at home when it came to the Army. I didn't know much about the Air Force outside of my brother's girlfriend. I didn't know many people in the Air Force to really give me advice, and I barely was doing my research on Air Force videos, and so I was always kind of like, Army. And some of the cons you would hear about the Army is that, oh, you know, they do too much mandatory PT, they do lots of field activities. I know my best friend, he kept telling me, he's in the Navy, and he kept saying, oh, best friend, you gonna hate the Army. I know people in the Army that can't stand their life. I'm telling you, go Air Force. We wish we was Air Force, you know. And I know that I don't really mention nothing about the Navy, because the only person I really know in the Navy as well is my best friend, and he's a male, so I think he experiences something completely different in the Navy than a female would. I know Navy females now that I'm in, but at that time I didn't really know who I could ask that was Navy, and I definitely never considered Marines. Never really knew nothing about Coast Guard, never really knew much about going National Guard. So at that time I only knew either Army active duty or reserve, and Army enlisted or officer. And I think the biggest con that I heard about the Army was that they work the shit out of us. Like, they gonna work the shit out of you. The Army, you know, just got it way harder. They way more tough on us. But a lot of people find value in the Army culture and how hard we worked that the Air Force does not get. And that brings me over to the pros and cons that you might be hearing about the Air Force that I also was having to battle with when I was choosing to make a decision. The biggest pros of the Air Force is that they have better quality of life, which is definitely true. Their branch is the most civilian related. A lot of people have a perception that the Air Force is for the smart people. They have a perception that Air Force is just a little more bougie than the other branches. They like literally live the high life. Like I said, the biggest con about the Air Force was that a lot of their jobs were mostly tech related. You know, the mindset, the mission for the Air Force is completely different than the Army. And I always looked at it like the Air Force is more on strategy, and the Army is more on like tactical and implementing the strategy. Like, they come and do, and the Air Force just does the mental work, I guess, which is why the Army is like land combat operations. We go and we the ones that fight. We do the fighting. We get in the trenches. We the not as head honcho as the Marines, but we close to them. And so you will hear a lot of people saying, hey, you go to the Air Force, you're gonna be soft, you know, y'all don't do nothing, which is something that I also was like, no, like, I like to work out. I like to be tough. I don't want to be all prissy and really not even know what the real military is like, which, like I said, that was the perceptions and the things that you will be hearing upon trying to enter the military. Now that I'm in, it's completely different. And you know, like, the biggest things too is that they're not guaranteed a job. That is completely too much of a gamble for me to have wanted to keep going with the Air Force if they're telling me that they're not promised a job. But now that I'm in and I was with Air Force people, in AIT, and they said that's not true. They said I had my job that I chose, and even though some people didn't, I know a lot of people did say that they were hearing that they weren't going to get a set job. And yeah, a lot of people just consider the Air Force not as military as other branches, and whether or not you find those pros and the cons of each branch something that you resonate with, that's what you consider. And that just brings me to my final thoughts about it, and what I want you to consider when it comes to choosing different branches is, number one, if one recruiter is not telling you what you need to hear, do not stop with that recruiter. You are free to talk to more than one recruiter of the same branch. It is nothing in place that says that you cannot. And in that instance, when I told you that the Air Force recruiter was kind of like picking that I wasn't where I needed to be with my weight, even though I really was not considered out of shape, you know, I just should have said, you know what, can you put me in touch with another Air Force recruiter, you know, nicely, or just speaking to anybody that you might know that knows another recruiter that you can get in contact with. I do want to say that I do truly believe now that I do know that the Air Force lifestyle is more fitting on the lifestyle that I like for myself. And if I would have been patient, I could have more than likely been in with the Air Force and still had the pros of being in the military, but truly had the pros of why I was in the military. And my true pros were just being stable while I figure things out, why I do other things but have a stable income. And that was really my biggest thing, is that I just truly just wanted the benefits that it had to offer. Not that I always see myself as, oh, serve your country. Like now I'm in, I can see it in that perspective. But when I was joining, I didn't truly see it in that perspective. I seen it as what they can do for me. And I still see the military as what they can do for me, because shoot, as much as we do for them and as much battle we go through to be in this field, we definitely got to look at it like, what can they do for us? I would have strongly considered which lifestyle fit me as a person more. A lot of people are just telling me that either choice is fine, which, okay, I understand either choice might be fine, but I do want to just end the video telling y'all to talk with Army recruiters, talk to Army Reserve, talk to Army National Guard, talk to Army officers, talk to Air Force officers, talk to Air Force Reserve, talk to Navy, talk to Coast Guard, talk to Marines, talk to every recruiter you need to, y'all. It's so many different paths to take, especially when it comes to going back to school, y'all. I'm telling you, I did not do half of the research that I know now I could have done to make sure I was on the best possible path for myself, and to really have the knowledge I needed to make an informed decision on this path that you cannot easily retreat from. I know now, and what I tell people that ask me about the military is to talk to every type of recruiter. That process might be long, but I'm pretty sure that process is gonna be worth it. You're gonna get so much knowledge, even if you know you never even knew Coast Guard really even ever existed like that. Try. And I tell you to do what you gotta do for yourself. Sis, bro, do you. Don't rush. Take your time. In the next video, I'm gonna talk about me going back and forth about enlisted and officer. Thank you for watching this video about why I was going back and forth with branches, but now that you know some things that I was considering, and now you possibly know to start considering, and now you know how to move forward with your recruitment process and your research. And whatever you like that I mentioned, if you heard something I said that you need more insight on, feel free to ask, leave it in the comment section. Stay tuned for the series I got coming for y'all. Like I said, I'm gonna tell y'all about how to choose the right MOS, what Meps was like, shipping out all the way up until getting to your first duty station, and what that will be like for you. Keep watching and subscribing for more videos.